Hey, it's Jason Hartman here. I'm coming to you from Copenhagen, Denmark, and wanted to talk to you just for a quick moment today about low income housing and renting low income housing and Section 8 rentals. Got my dog here. She's down there. Say hi, Coco. And then girlfriend over here. So we're just on our way to dinner and thought we'd stop and do a quick video because this was such a pretty scene. Income properties, the most historically proven asset class in the entire world. I absolutely love them. Made a fortune with income properties, and we've helped many clients make a fortune with them too. So one of the questions we often get is whether it is better to offer Class A properties, Class B properties, Class C properties, or the little used term, but I think it's a very valid one, of Class D properties, really ugly bad properties. And should you do traditional landlording, where you collect the rent and there's no government agency involved, or should you consider doing low-income housing? Now, low-income housing could have a government assistance program. The most commonly known one is called Section 8. It's commonly referred to as Section 8, government-assisted housing. But there are many others. Many municipalities have their own assisted rental assistance type of program as well. And I just sold a fairly large apartment complex that I own with one of our clients that had rental assistance through the municipality, that housing authority. And let me tell you, that was red tape galore. What a monumental hassle. And we just got a little bit of sick of dealing with it, honestly. My partner got a little more sick of it, more than I did. But he really wanted to sell it. I just kind of went along with it, but we made some great money on that property. It was a very nice sale, and I'll talk to you more about that one after the deal closes. It's scheduled to close next week, so I'll be back to talk to you more about that one on the podcast. And these subjects, by the way, have been covered in much more detail on my podcast, The Creating Wealth Show. So refer to that, any podcast platform, iTunes, Stitcher Radio, whatever. You just search Jason Hartman, you'll find that show, and or you can go to jasonhartman.com and just type those words, Section 8, low-income housing, and so forth, in the search engine at jasonhartman.com. You can get a lot more detail on this, and I just tell you that because this is not an exhaustive talk on the subject by any means. There's more to it. But the basics are this. I think these are the basic things to consider. Number one, I kind of like personally, what do I personally like? I personally like the Class A properties where you just have good tenants. In fact, I think one of the most ideal tenant profiles is a family where they've got a kid in a good school district and they want to keep that kid or those kids in that school district. They will kind of fight to stay there, I've noticed. But people make money every which way with income property. They make money doing Section 8 low-income stuff. They make money doing all kinds of different things. But personally, for me, I kind of like that just traditional rental where you've got a property where you might pay, say now in this market, and of course this is context sensitive to the particular marketplace at the time, but you might pay $150,000 for that property, for example, and right now you might be getting, say, $1,350 a month in rent for that, and that's a nice sort of Class A, good quality income property. But you could do the cheap stuff. You could buy $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 houses, and or $70,000 or $80,000 houses. You can, they can be any price range almost within our marketplace, and they could be government-assisted housing, Section 8. Now, what do you have to think about with Section 8, if you will? And I'm just going to call it Section 8 to refer to the broader picture of government-assisted housing. Now, my mom had a lot of Section 8 rentals when I was growing up, and I always say she complained all the way to the bank. She complained all the way to the bank. And why do people complain about Section 8 housing and Section 8 tenants and that whole thing? Well, there's a couple things that are great about it and a couple things to definitely complain about it. What's great about it? First, couple things there. Number one, the rent is guaranteed by good old Uncle Sam. The U.S. government is paying all or a large portion of the rent. So that's a pretty good deal because they're going to pay you, okay? And you're not going to have any collection problems with the government paying the rent. But the stuff you will have, the problems you will have are you've got to pass these Section 8 inspections. And you know, those are government bureaucrats that can hassle you, they can hold you up, they can make life difficult for you, and maybe make you do things in terms of maintenance to your property that you don't want to do. You know, you've got another party in there, another party that's involved, getting in the way, getting in the middle of the deal, if you will. You know, I've talked a lot about minimum wage laws and how I think they're just absolutely ridiculous, how they create unemployment, they hurt the people they are trying to help, because when the government gets in the middle of the transaction, then you know, the two parties, the employer and the employee, can't agree on a deal because the government's in the middle of it saying, hey, you got to do this, you got to do that, and you can't just give someone a job at a price they're willing to accept and a price you're willing to pay as the employer. Well, this is similar to that because the government's in the middle of your rental transaction, right? So that can be a hassle. On the good side, though, besides that guaranteed rent from the government, the tenants tend to stay longer. You know, they tend to stay longer because, hey, they're on the dole, and why would they want to move? And there is one other pretty large benefit. If a Section 8 tenant acts badly, they might get kicked out of the program. And once they're kicked out, they could be kicked out for life and lose their Section 8 benefits. So you do have some leverage over them in that respect. So again, this is, you know, it's good and bad. It's good and bad. Typically, they might be a little harder on your property, but you can have a good quality tenant, a theoretically good quality tenant in a Class A property that can also be pretty hard on your property. So, you know, nothing is completely one way or the other. It's all an individual case-by-case basis. But by and large, you'll hear landlords that do a lot of Section 8 tenants, a lot of low-income tenants. They'll say, hey, you know, they're pretty hard on the property. They just don't care a lot of times, and they'll thrash your properties more often than not. One of the other things you got to think about in terms of the non-Section 8 but low rent, low income type housing. Currently today, I think if you have rent that is sub $800 or $900 per month for a single family home, you're probably going to have collection problems. The reason is that you tend to be working with people that are really at the lower end of the marketplace, obviously, and they don't care. You know, a lot of times they don't care about their credit score. A lot of times they've sort of given up on life and they don't care about moving ahead in life, and you'll have more collection problems with these types of tenants. The other thing is on your side of the ledger, right? If you have a tenant that stiffs you for the rent and beats your house up, you know, how hard are you going to go after someone for a small amount of money? Maybe they owe you $1,600, right? You know, 2 months rent and maybe some damages to the property. And, you know, you take them to court, you get a judgment, but how hard are you gonna chase them for such a small amount of money? Because some of the fees will be just fixed. The court costs, the eviction fees, etc. They'll be fixed, and it could be kind of just not worth going after them. With a larger tenant, it could be worth going after them, right? If they do bad things, if they owe you money, if they damage your property, if they owe you money for the rent, and the amount you're going after them for is $5,000-$6,000, you know, hey, that hurts more, right? It definitely hurts you more, but it's worth going after. And they might be moving up in life to where they're going to be a collectible debtor, right? They're going to get a judgment, or you're going to get a judgment, and it is going to follow them, and eventually you're going to stand a better chance of collecting from a tenant like that. So again, this is by no means an exhaustive thing. You can learn a lot more on my podcast. Go to jasonhartman.com, use the search engine there, and search for this or any other topic you're interested, and you'll find a lot more detail about it. I interview a lot of experts on these topics. So that's it for now. But hey, we've got a little tourist boat coming by. We took this canal tour just about 2 weeks ago when we were here. So that was pretty cool. Anyway, happy investing, and over and out from Copenhagen, Denmark. Thanks for joining me today.